Write what you know is the advice traditionally given to the nascent writer. But that begs the question, how well do you know yourself? How much should a writer put themselves into their work? Is it possible to share too much? We will ask our panelists about how much of them goes into their writing and what aspects of their personality most often make it to the page. In the end, how much of us is reflected in the work? This week, Joe Indy's Joe Compton brings us movies you may like if you are a fan of Back to the Future. Directed by Robert Zemeckis, starring Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Next, we run down the shows upcoming this week by the team at Go Indy Now in our Go Indy Minute. Finally, we dig deep into multiple choice and literary goodness with our epilogue. April is halfway in the bag, and as the Northern Hemisphere climbs into spring, we are looking inward to see what comes out on the page. Welcome to another ephemeral episode of This Week in Indies with your host, SM Hillman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another week of This Week in Indies. I'm your host, SM Hillman. Today we talk about how much of us goes into our works of art, our writing, maybe our movie making, whatever it is. How much of the author finds its way into the work, and how deliberate is that versus how it might just accidentally make it into the work. But before we get too far into anything, let's go ahead and introduce or have our panelists introduce themselves. So go ahead, JD.
Greetings, fellow humans. Welcome to Go Indy Now. I am your furry favorite Puerto Rican indie author, hopefully. And I have my Puerto Rico Comic-Con shirt to say and send a shout out to my people over at the Comic-Con. They're having a blast. I have a lot of FOMO. I got 22 books out. 5 of them are on sale. Just go to Amazon, click JD Estrada, and see what's 99 cents and enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. AJ?
Hi, I'm AJ Mulliken. I don't know if you can hear me real well. I write a lot of romance. I write a lot of smut. I write a lot of fun stuff. We'll see how much of me is in there later on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, we can hear you just fine. And Juliet.
Hey, I'm Juliet Rose. And actually, you can find me now. I need to change that at abovethebraincollective.com. I'm going to get rid of my website and combine it into the website. I write, I'm cross-genre, so I write a little bit of everything. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Uh-oh. How'd that happen? There we go. All right. There we go. Now we're back in where we should be. Okay. So, yeah, everyone like and subscribe, please. Don't forget to do that. We appreciate it. If you're listening in the future, from the future, or coming back to the future, please also leave a comment, and we are happy to interact with you. We appreciate it. So the first, my first thought about this, just to kind of lay the groundwork a little bit, is can each of you think of a book or movie? I think obviously we focus on books and stuff here, but a movie as well, or maybe even a poem. From another creator that you really showed off that person, who that person really was. JD, we'll start with you.
Wow, putting on the spot, and this is like an SAT question, dude. This is not off the top of your head. Okay, so by default, let's go to my favorite band. My favorite band is Pearl Jam. I think that if something captures what that entire band is, and their ethos and just who and how they are, plus lyrics and whatnot, I think there's a song off their 4th album. The album is No Code, and the song Present Tense. It's just a song that I think captures highlights from each of the band members, but it sounds like its own thing. The lyrics hit like a ton of bricks. It's one of my favorite songs from them. And it's not my favorite song from them, but in terms of capturing who and how they are after they kind of broke out of that 10 shell and the whole grunge era shell, and they were just coming into their own as a band. I think that album hits like all the marks. It's not the one that sold the most. It's when they were going up against Ticketmaster. And it's just a beautiful album that I think it's their most listenable album from start to finish, that you could put replay all. It can just go over and over and over, and it captures so much. And it's like they don't care. It's their Led Zeppelin 3. It's the equivalent, because Led Zeppelin has the first two albums and then they do a hard pivot. This is a hard pivot, but a beautiful one at that.
Gotcha. Awesome. AJ, what about you?
That's kind of hard to say because I don't really, I don't know a lot of the authors that I read as far as personally. I would say Errol Dawn's Marriage Pact is a good one because she really put a lot of her own nerdy goodness into that one. So that's a fun one. Gotcha.
What is it about, do you think, just because it's fun, or what particular shows off the personality?
Well, it's about, kind of a nerdy pair of people who make an agreement to get married later on in life. And it's just really shows off the her personality as far as her love for all things Star Wars and all the nerd genre stuff. She kind of stuck that into her own book and really made it hers really well.
Awesome. Excellent. Juliet, what about you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was thinking about authors at first, but then of course JD brought up music too. So I have like two. So obviously I think like Octavia Butler, when she wrote like the Parable series, was a lot of her and like what she believed in, like her kind of social feelings about what could happen in this country. But then of course the thing about Rage Against the Machine, like they are just putting themselves out there for what they believe in. No apologies at all, So I think two of those on that.
Excellent. Is there a favorite Rage song do you have a favorite, or?
I mean, I have favorites. I mean, of course I like the big one, but I'm actually digging Guerrilla Radio right now. That's like one that I feel is just like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get you. Awesome. Let's dip into some of our early comments here. JD breaking the call for us. Thank you so much. Going to now reminding you to send a star and a like and subscribe, please. AF Stewart, thank you, Anita, for being here as always. JD saying hello, absolutely. AL Mengel, AL, good to see you again. Thank you. Happy Easter to you as well. JD engaging in conversation. Yep, hit the like button, please. Please hit the like button. And JD asking Juliet a question. Do you ever sing Kiss from a Rose to you from when you were saying good morning?
Yeah, and I did reply, but it came up as Goaney now because I host another show. So, but yes, no, not yet. Can't say that I ever have.
Gotcha.
Maybe you're not a Seal fan. But by the way, Sleep Now in the Fire for me from Rage, just because that song just hits.
Yeah.
Agreed. 100%. Joe, not yet. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Josh, good morning, Josh, or I guess good morning, good afternoon. Yep, nice for Rolf break. Yep. JD saying hello to Josh, and Josh, yeah, for sure. Agreed. All right. Juliet, I'm going to throw this one out to you first. What is the most you piece of work you have put out there? I know you do put a lot of yourself into your work as a rule, but what's the most you piece of work you've done?
Yeah, and I do. I think that everything that I write is so much me. I kind of reflect back to We Don't Matter, which is my book about. It's a LGBTQ book. The main character is actually kind of. I never meant to write a series, so do over, and then this book came from Do-Over, and then Done came from this book. So, kind of working on that. But it gets into police brutality. It gets into church abuse. It gets into like protests and social issues. And everybody that knows me is I'm a big mouth activist. I'm always talking about it. But I really, I cried when I wrote that book because I was trying to like put something out into the world that maybe I would reach even like one person to get a different perspective without just preaching at people.
Right. Now, again, not to get too personal or anything, but has that intensified over the last 5 or 6 months? Are you going to be looking to do that, more of that as you continue your writing, you think?
I think I've always done it in my writing. I don't really see the point personally of writing unless I'm taking those elements and putting it in there, because it's just actually having this conversation with my husband, who's also a writer, and like at the end of my life I want to know that what I wrote meant something, and if I don't make 1 million sales, it's fine. If I'm not, whatever, it doesn't matter. What I wanted to know is what I put out into the world maybe reached someone and gave someone a different perspective, to be more compassionate, to care about the world we live in, to fight back and speak up. So
Yep, absolutely. Great. AJ, what about you? Is there a work that's most you of all the works you put out there?
It's actually something that's not really out anymore. I unpublished a lot of the poetry I'd published very, very early on when I first started writing. That was a lot of really raw, really working through being bipolar and working through a lot of personal stuff before I actually got into prose writing and writing, novels and stuff. So it's not out there anymore. I took it down because a lot of it was really, really cheesy and oh my God. But that would have been my most me stuff, was the very, very early stuff.
Do you think that you'll ever put it back up, work through it again, or
I don't think so.
Or
I don't think so, because it's kind of one of those things, like it's been and gone, and it's a time of my life that's past. I like to kind of like look forward in my writing and move on. I don't want to just kind of stay stagnant in something that's I've already worked my way through.
Right. That makes sense. JD, what about you?
My jam is to include big chunks of myself, and it just varies how much. In terms of poetry, I think there are some poems that hit hard, and some people have commented on them. One is called "The Box," and that was me reflecting on my father's wake. Just because it's a surreal experience to bury your parent, and having people that you don't know come up to you, etc. So I wrote a poem about that, and then one occasion at a Puerto Rico Comic Con, someone said, "Oh, The Box," and I'm like, "Yeah, that poem is really personal because of this and that." And the person said, like, "Yeah, I finally understood what I felt when my dad died." In a Puerto Rico Comic Con where you're supposed to be all smiles and stuff, it's like you're just like choking up. So that's one poem that really captures a very, very personal part of me. There's one called "The Madness of Jonathan J. George," which is the longest poem I've written so far. It's a poem in 8 movements, 100 lines to the movement. Each one has its own rhyme scheme. One is free verse, etc. And it is someone climbing back from their madness, because there was a really rough patch that I had in my life, and catharsis is a thing, and writing through it is a thing. And most people do know me for the human cycle, which is only human, shadow of a human, and beyond human. So that's how much of me is is out there. People say, "Oh, is the protagonist Nathaniel based on you?" And I'm like, kind of. Is Daniel the unsparkling vampire based on me? And I'm like, kind of. Think of it this way: these are my 2 kids, and they have aspects of me, but they're not me. To clarify that they're not me, I included my pseudo persona in this book, and also in Given to Fly, which is a middle grade book. And there's a character called Fayed Odstein, which is an anagram for fate and destino. Destino is fate in Spanish. That's not a spoiler. That's just me telling you I'm actually in my stories. That is my literary persona. And when I say that, it's just all of my my sensitivity is heightened because there's also the me version, because in the daydreams on the Sherbet Shore, and yes, I get long-winded because I include a lot of me in a lot of things. There is a JD, and JD is in the stories, and that series came about because I was having this really fun conversation with an author from the UK. And I said, I'm going to do a series based on this because we were talking about the Cocoa Lagoon and looking at the sky to a champagne supernova and just this whimsical, fun conversation. And I said, I'm going to do something with this. And I wrote a story. Then I wrote a second story. I did write a third story, but before I published that one, a friend of mine, she was having surgery, gastric surgery, and I'm already sharing too much information, but I'm not going to share the name. And instead of a get well card or just like, hope you feel better, I wrote a story for her, about her, including her. And that became the trend of these stories, to include people that I know that live far away and that we don't have the benefit of being able to hang out over the weekend. And also as get well letters. There's one story for a friend of mine who is a cancer survivor. There's a story for the daughters of someone that I grew up with, and he passed away from a car crash and left behind a family. And I wanted to write something so that they can, if someone gave $2 to the GoFundMe that they're doing for their college fund, that they could sell my story and whatever. And also I did want to share with people that Juancho, their father, was a stand-up dude. And I did a mental exercise, and I didn't have one negative. We weren't super close, but I didn't have one negative memory. One time of him bitching as a kid, one time of him fighting as a kid, one time of him doing anything. I only remember this guy smiling constantly. And I told that to his closest friends, and everyone was like, that's him. And I was like, okay. And they read the book, they read the story, and they were like, dude, that's beautiful. And for me to know that people who know someone, they saw that reflected is very important. And it's something that I take very seriously. And whatever you see in the stories, people have met me and they go like, yeah, dude, you're like the guy in your stories. And I'm like, that's the purpose, but thank you.
Awesome. And I'll throw this out to everyone. We'll pivot, slight pivot is, what is it about poetry? Because it's been mentioned twice now. What is it about poetry do you think makes it possible to be more personal than, say, prose?
I don't really write poetry, so
I would say it's because it's a lot easier to be yourself and write about yourself in poetry without making it egotistical. Like if you make yourself the main character in this sweeping story who saves the day and everything, that's a little more full of yourself than just writing a poem to work through some tough times or something. I think it's also a little more nebulous. It's not as concrete as I put this character who looks, walks, talks, everything like me in the story, and then but the poem you can make it yourself without making it seem like you're trying to make everything about yourself. It's a little different, I think, as far as when you're writing poetry versus when you're writing a prose or a novel or something.
We're going to come back to that thought in a little bit as well. But
I do have thoughts on poetry. For me, okay, so for a story, for a novel or anything, you have to have a narrative. In a poem, you don't have to have a narrative. You just have to focus and observe an emotion. And sometimes you just got to spill out what you're feeling. You don't need a start and a finish in terms of, what happens in this story. In a poem, it's just like you're feeling something so intensely that you just got to get it out of yourself, even if it's only to understand it and see it on the page. For me, I always recommend for people to write or to do anything artistic, just because I know people who paint, that when they see a painting, they know what they were feeling and why they were feeling it after they painted it. It took that to understand the emotion. And I think that's why it's personal, and it's very intimate. It's a confessional. And very often for me, poetry is saying something that I don't want to say out loud, so I just say it on the paper. And the beauty about metaphors and similes and just wordsmithing is that you can be as direct and as literal and as honest as you can be, or you can veil it a bit so that you're sharing it and you know what you're saying out there. But some people will, the beauty about poetry is that because it's like song lyrics, the flexibility of it means that you can interpret it in more than one way. Certain poems, some are very direct. And for me, that's the freedom that I find in poetry. And you're muted, good sir.
I am muted. See, yeah, I'm going to write a book with me in it, but you don't hear anything because my character is muted all the time. All right, so let's go some questions. Josh has Sleep Down a Fire. I think we shared that one. Some comments. The best writing comes from part of you. No, I think we agree. We all agree with that for sure. What you care about is in the book. Yep, I think so. Josh continues my current case, my real life adventures, but I'd say my book, the Watcher, fits that. Okay, awesome. Everybody check out the Watcher. A lot of my beliefs are as well. Yeah, I think that's true. That's a great point, Josh. Is that I think our beliefs. I know for me, I don't know how well they come across, but I know in my writing, you pretty quickly catch up on what I believe in about certain things, right? And I think that is relatively unconscious. You can't just. I don't consciously do it, but I don't consciously edit it out either. From A.L. Mengel, A.L. So far, the book that is most me is The Mortician. I think you talked about that a few weeks ago. But we'll take it over my work in progress. The book I'm currently writing has quite a bit of me in it. And then talking about Josh's, JD talking about Josh's Substack. It's definitely 1% you. Okay, good to know. And Josh was saying everything is. I feel if you're not authentic in them, it can't connect. And I think that's probably true too. That being a sub kind of idea of everything we're talking about is connection to the reader. And JD mentioned that. Come on. There we go. Juliet or AJ, what about you? Have you had people come up to you and say, "Oh, I resonated with the book, something that was more personal for you at all?"
I mean, yeah, I think that because when I'm trying to write a book, and it may have me in there, my goal is to, not be about me, but be about other people's experiences. And I think because of that, a lot of people relate to the character's experiences. So what they're resonating with is what I've built into that character, even though I was using my own personal either views or experiences within that.
Gotcha. Sorry, I had the wrong person up. It's okay.
I know, but I can talk. and I honestly, I've had a few where I think the resonation usually comes from I do write a lot about addiction. So I have had people. I write about the prison system and I write about addiction. So I have had people that have had both of those experiences come up to me and say that they appreciated that I shared those experiences in a way that wasn't your stereotype of those experiences.
Right. Yeah. I think people do appreciate that very much. AJ, what about you? Any reader feedback that personally resonates?
Not that I've had, but I tend to write more fantastical stories and characters, so I don't think they resonate as well with people on a personal level, just because it's a little more idealized characters as opposed to realistic characters. So I'm hoping to have a book come out soon called that will have more of a realistic character in that she's shy, she's introverted, she doesn't like to go out very much, like stay home, play video games, and that's more of a me thing than some of the characters who go out and party and things like that. So
yeah, that's also more of a me thing too. Right? Yeah, video games especially.
Oh, awesome. You also write smut. Has anyone ever said, "Oh, we role played thanks to that story and it was awesome"?
No, it has not happened.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
Goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few more comments here talking about let's see. Oh yeah, so JD asking about AL's nonfiction. And AL talking a little bit about their nonfiction. And some other stuff. AF. Poetry often springs from personal experiences. Yep, I know that mine does. Plus, there are usually no characters. That's true. Unless it's the Odyssey, but that's okay. But that's an outlier, right? It's epic poetry. Poetry can be anything, correct? My poetry is very me also, but I have only written a few poems, AJ says. JD, exactly, Anita, Josh, yep. Yep, agreed. We all need goals. It's true. We do need goals. Agreed. All right. So as we ponder coming up next, I think the next question is going to be about what we can do for new writers. But before we get to that, I've got to find. Here we go. This week's Indie Film Connection with our very own Joe Compton is going to be talking about Back to the Future.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joe Compton, and welcome to the Indie Film Connection. And I have indie films for you that you might enjoy if you're a fan of one of my all-time favorite films, Back to the Future, which is celebrating its 40th anniversary this week. The first indie film I have for you is called The Wrong Todd, a film by Rob Schallenbaum. Resistant to change, Todd finds himself at a crossroads when his girlfriend Lucy is offered a promotion from the other side of the country. Before they have a chance to work it out, Todd's evil twin from a parallel universe arrives to take his place, and Todd must face the prospect of a world without Lucy. The Wrong Todd explores love, friendship, and the absurd to uncover what really matters. This movie is available for free on Roku and Xumo Play. The next indie film I have for you is Brad Anderson's Happy Accidents. Ruby Weaver is weary of her long history of failed relationships with men when she meets Sam Deed in a park. But after the two fall in love, Ruby becomes suspicious of Sam's past and his obsession with Christy Delancey and the Casual Effect. Under pressure from her, he finally explains that he's really from the year 2470 and is what he calls a back traveler. Ruby initially ignores this story, but after Sam's persistence, she begins to wonder. She takes him to see her therapist, Meg Ford. Ruby becomes worried as to Sam's sanity when he reveals that everything he has done was a deliberate attempt to change her life. This movie is available for purchase on Amazon Prime. The next indie film I have for you is Primer, a film by Shane Carruth. Intellectual engineers Aaron and Abe build and sell error-checking technology with the help of their friends Robert and Philip. But when Aaron and Abe accidentally invent what they think is a time machine, Abe builds a version capable of transporting a human and puts the device to the test. As the two friends obsess over their creation, they discover the dark consequences of their actions. This is also available for purchase on Amazon Prime. And finally, the last indie film I have for you is an anime by Tomohiko Ito. The year is 2027, and the city of Kyoto has undergone tremendous technological advancement. Within the city live two classmates, Naomi Kakegagi, a socially awkward and introverted boy, and Ruri Ichiguro, a girl with cold personality who is often blunt with people. Despite Ruri's love of reading, Naomi is afraid to approach her due to her unfriendly nature. But one day, while on a walk, Naomi witnesses a crimson aura pierce through the sky for a brief moment before vanishing. Shortly thereafter, he encounters a three-legged crow and a mysterious hooded man who reveals himself to be Naomi from 10 years into the future, explaining that he has come to change an imminent tragic event that happens to Ruri soon after they started dating. Initially taking his words With a great assault, present-day Naomi follows his future self's instructions and starts to get closer to Rory, determined to save her. Will he be able to change the future? This movie is available for free on Daily Motion. That's all for me on this Indie Film Connection. Thanks for joining me. I hope you do enjoy those films and check them out, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like some great movies.
We got some anime. That's different.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, again, I'm going to throw this out to everybody. What do you... Well, actually, let's start something first, because I think AJ brought up something about self-inserting and making a story about you. Generally, that's... People are turned off by that. But what about that, doing that to you is not a good thing, right? Where you maybe you put too much, or a writer puts too much into their story, of them into the story, or it's just not interesting to watch, to a fictional biography, as it were.
I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing if they do it well. I mean, people like memoirs, right? So they like to hear about people's stories. So I think that even in fiction, an author can do that. And I don't. I think I had mentioned that before. It's like, I really don't do that because that's not my goal. But I think that if the author has particular experiences and wants to reflect a character, really using those more as almost like a fiction memoir, I think it could work. I think the drawback is if someone repeatedly does that, then they don't really have variety in the writing, because they're kind of writing that same character over and over again in their story. So I think it's really just, determining why you would do that. And then if you've done it, probably not repeatedly doing that.
Right. Gotcha.
Any trope done poorly is gonna suck. Anything that's done half-assedly is gonna suck. If you're genuine and if you're true, it's there. Some people wanna take advantage and go like, oh, I know this person and I know this artist, which is something that a lot of people do when it comes to musicians and actors and stuff like that. But it's like, okay, it's not Dr. Drake Ramore, it's Joey. And people sometimes blur the lines, and you got to be careful with that. But I think you have to be careful in general. And if you're going to insert yourself into a story, make it worthwhile, make it fun, make it engaging, so that people enjoy it. Don't do it out of ego. Do it out of the necessity of the story. If the story dictates that you should do that, and do that to the best of your abilities. If it's an ego trip, don't do it.
Yeah, good advice. Yeah. AJ, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is that making the you character into a kind of a Mary Sue or an idealized version can kind of backfire in a way, because it makes it seem like the story is more flat, because you've got the idealized version, you don't have the real thing, and that takes away from some of the reality and some of the natural flow of things.
Yep. For sure. All right. So, and you've already done a little bit of this, but JD, we'll start with you and go around. Advice for new writers when for how much of themselves to put into a work, and just like it doesn't have to necessarily be like a numbered or whatever. Just your thoughts on if you were giving advice to a new writer.
35%. If you go over 30, you're doing it wrong. Exactly 35%. And the way that you can quantify that is, I don't know. You have to, whatever you decide to put in a story from you have to be comfortable with people knowing that. And I think we got a metal sneeze. That sounded like a metal sneeze. It was like a disturbed sneeze, like wah. Anyways. You have to be comfortable with what you share. I am extremely open, and anyone who knows me, they know that I'm extremely open. to a certain point. After that point, there's a hard cutoff, and very few people get into those circles. And I describe it, if there's like, different circles of hell, there's circles of heaven, and there's circles of you. I'm very comfortable sharing a lot of me, a lot of who I am, what I think. I'm very open about talking about grief in regards to how I've coped with the passing of my mom and stuff like that. And it's something that I'm very open with. And there's other stuff that no one will ever hear, or very, very few people. And it's keeping checks and balances and knowing which keys you're going to give to your readers and to people in general. If you're going to post it online, you have to be comfortable responding to that wherever you're met with a question. So you're in a job interview and someone read a blog post that was really personal, that could get you into hot water or whatnot. There's nothing that I've shared online that I wouldn't be comfortable defending in terms of who and how I am. And if that's a problem for someone, hey, there's other people that need a job. There's other people that are also senior copywriters. There are other creatives. You don't need me, and I clearly don't need you.
Gotcha. AJ, advice for a writer who's starting out?
I would say if you're going to put you into a story, make it as real as you can while still maintaining some semblance of mystery. Don't unless you're actually writing a memoir, writing your autobiography, don't just make the character 100% you. This is me. Here we go. Leave a little bit to the imagination, leave a little bit, because putting too much of yourself into something, like JD said, somebody reads it and they ask you about it later on. You got to be comfortable. Yeah, that's me. Or I don't know if I'm not. That's a fictional character. It just happens to look a lot me. It's kind of. Oh.
I do have a bonus comment. Don't include anything that people can use as your security questions for a bank or something. Not your maiden name, not your nana's, whatever, not your first pet in your life. None of that, because people and scammers are very creative, very, 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 very determined. So nothing that puts you in risk like that.
That's wise words.
Absolutely. Juliet, advice to the new writer?
Yeah, and this is something that I actually have thought about because of personal experiences. And so, like, I lost my mother as a child to cancer, and I've lost a child as a mother to cancer. So I have written using a character that's had the experience of losing a mother to cancer, but I haven't touched on the child with cancer. And this is why, and this is my advice, is that when you put that in a book, books are always subject to criticism. They're always subject to whatever. And if this is something really personal to you and something that you would be sensitive about, you might want to think twice. And this is why I haven't touched on losing a child with cancer in my books, because it is something I'm extremely sensitive about. And I wouldn't necessarily want somebody to be like, well, I thought that was stupid, or it wasn't real, or it was whatever. Like, it's not something I would handle well, I'll be honest. So, like, right. I think that it's just like, if you're going to put yourself in there, understand that you're literally putting yourself out there for criticism, not a character, not your writing, but yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Jay was saying, be careful of what it is you're sharing and what you're not sharing, right? Yeah. So maybe like some internal boundaries that the writer should, like, these are the things I'm willing to be open about. These are things I'm not willing to be open about. I think that's fantastic advice. All right, let's get a few more comments in here before we wrap up. Elizabeth, along those lines, when you put a fictional version of yourself into your work, is there a danger of falling into the Mary Sue? I think we talked about that a little bit. Yep, I think that is true. I mean, I really can throw a building at people, but I don't want to put that in my writing. I don't want to show off. Josh, I never put a fully fictional version of myself unless I'm making fun of it. Okay, that makes sense. Self-parody, I think, is always fun. I want to know you are as messed up as I am. Thank you, Joe, for that. Yeah, absolutely. AL mentions, they're back. Okay. Asking what the question was. Josh, be 100% about what you care about. The rest is minutia. I think that's probably true. AL say thank you. My memoir is 100% me naturally. It is really tearing off a band-aid, right? I thought I might make a memoir about fictional Sean. That might be interesting. That may have been what JD was referring to earlier. Yep, could be. And for the book, I had to involve others in the creative process because there are others in my life who also appear in the story. Okay. Oh, that brings a question to mind that I hit on in just a second. Characters, they are different. You're not saying anything, right? Yep, that's true. They had to write very meticulously to protect their identities. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, what coincidence? That's what. Yes, exactly. That's the combination of my luggage. If you're Spaceball fans, you'll get that reference. Very Spaceballs. Yep. JD. Yes, get creative with your passwords and codes. Yes. This is not a show about passwords and codes. However, we cannot emphasize enough. Please be creative with them. Josh approves of that. Josh has got to go. Hitching to Portland. Take care. Good luck, Josh, with that. And cheers to the trip and return to Canada. Yep. Canadian. All right. Gotcha. That's something interesting. Very quickly, and again, I'll throw this out to everybody. Is what about other people you know? How careful are you when writing characters that are based off people you know? If you're careful at all.
Yeah, well, I try not to include other people because it can be seen as kind of like taking liberties that they may not want you to take, even if it's a fictionalized version. So yeah, you got to be careful about when you're including other people, how much of it to make real and how much of it to make just the story, because you don't want to make it too real and then end up insulting somebody because your version of what happened may not be what really happened.
Yeah, I think of that quote that says, like, if people didn't want you to talk about what they did to you, they should have treated you better, And I think, I will use experiences I had and maybe my perception of that other person in that experience in my writing. Because again, it's something I experienced, it's real to me. I'm not going to use their likeness or who they are, their name or, whatever, but I will use what happened. So that person may become a character in that sense. Obviously the character is going to be different and defined by the character itself, but I'm going to use those experiences. And I'm fine with that, again, because if they don't like it, maybe they shouldn't have done that. That's how I look at it.
Right. Maybe you should have treated me a little bit better when I was 12, John. Yeah. JD?
I include a lot of people based on people that I know. So it's no secret that Mrs. Fawn is based on Mom, and it's inspired. It's not exactly Mom because, first off, it's written in English. Mom was Cuban. Captain Jane Reynolds is based on my wife, and I already mentioned the characters that I include in the Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore. Anything that's flattering, hey, that's good. Anything that's not flattering, I do blur the lines a little bit in terms of who I'm using as inspiration. And I used to write in an anonymous blog that wasn't anonymous to some people because you're in your 20s and you're ignorant and you don't know that you can get blacklisted from an ad agency from saying that you write in an ad blog. But I wrote a specific piece, and someone was saying, dude, you wrote about this person saying this and this and that. And I'm like, that character is not based on that person, but I know who you're seeing in that character. And they just wanted to just get swallowed by the earth. And I was like, it's not based on that person. I'm not going to tell you who it's based on. And it's a combination of actually 3 people. And that's what I normally do. When I have an asshole, like a proper asshole character, I take elements from people that I really dislike. And yes, it might be stronger from certain people. But again, if it's not going to be flattering and if it's going to be the opposite, I'm not Taylor Swift and I'm not going to make it obvious about who it's about. I'm not a Swiftie that way. And some people might guess, but even if they guess right, I will never confess. Although the piece that I mentioned that someone said, if I wrote about that person, no, I did not write about that person. But it was interesting because I went in to the character that I wanted to be, yeah, I did a little short story and it was just this asshole. And it was funny that they saw that person reflected in that character, which I think makes the best characters. When you see, sometimes you hate a character in a movie or in a story or in a video game just because they remind you about someone you hate. So if it's not going to be flattering, take a couple steps back so that you wouldn't recognize them in the lineup, but you might go like, hey, is it that person at 20 feet distance? And you don't want to get sued. So
No, you do not want to get sued. So I'm hoping Stevie Nicks sees the one character as an homage. And anyway, so AL mentioning in their memoir, it's nonfiction, and they create a scene involve people who are represented in the scene, real life conversations about what happened, and also let them read it. Yeah, makes sense. You should have returned my phone call, Stephen King. So since we have a Stephen King reference, Stephen, you should have returned Joe's phone call.
I love that picture.
And AL going on some more. And they read the draft first. Yep, that becomes part of the story. My memoir is their story as well. Yep, that makes sense. And then is like a giant 1,000-piece puzzle being put together one piece at a time. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. All right, so no epilogue this week. So we're going to jump right into. I know, but you guys are getting tougher with these questions. So I've got to come up with good ones. So let's go ahead now and jump into our Go Indie Minute. This week we are having a lot of game related stuff. So Monday at 8 p.m. These are all Eastern time, 8 p.m. Eastern. I just told you that. GM Jessica Nettles, who has appeared on this show before, leads her Cryptid Capture Core team on another adventure with Hit the Dice. Cryptid Capture Core is a RPG by Bob Magoo. A lot of you guys know Bob. On Tuesday, speaking of Bob, we have Juliet welcomes Bob Magoo for another episode of First Time for Everything. I love that show. I love being on it, and it's really good. Thursday, we have Zero Means You're Dead. That's our RPG interview and conversation piece with new games and a new game designer in Timothy Niederreiter. Timothy was really interesting interview. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did. And then next Sunday, of course, we're back here with This Week in Indies, live from Budokan. No, live from JordanCon. So if you're going to be at JordanCon or you're going to be in Atlanta or you're going to be both, you should come by. And actually, we'll probably be in the studio, so I don't know if you can watch, but you should definitely watch on here. So, Juliet, tell everybody your darkest secrets now. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me places. No, you can find me online. All of my handles for different social media is just author Juliet Rose. And I'm there sometimes. And then my website, again, I'm switching out from authorjulietrose.com to just move to the publishing website, which is abovetherainccollective.com. And I have a page on there. Find me there. I actually don't have events for a couple of weekends, which I'm kind of super excited about because I'm tired. And then my next event, I will be in Georgia. I'll be at the Butterfly Bash here in Dahlonega at the end of the month, May 31st. I'll be at Honeybee Fest in Lafayette, Georgia, which is also a really awesome event. So
awesome. Yeah, you're very busy with the with events. So.
It's event season, yeah. It's a lot, but I'm an in-your-face person like that. I don't do well selling books online. It's just not my thing. I sell my books in person because I like to connect with people. So yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Folks, check those out. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing with us. AJ?
Hi, I'm AJ Mulligan. You can find me at ajmulligan.com. You can find me on Facebook, Insta, a couple other places, mostly Facebook and ajmulligan.com. You can find my books on Amazon. Check them out. Read them on Kindle Unlimited. Buy the books. Have fun with them. And I'll see you around next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And JD?
Hello again, humans. To my people at the Puerto Rico Comic Con, hope you have a blast. You can find me if I'm on a social media platform. This is going to be the handle. I've been consistent to have the same handle across platforms. By the end of this year, I will probably be on less and less platforms just because life is happening and stuff is happening. But if I'm on there, JD Estrada Writer. Where can you find my books? If you want them physical, go to websites from local bookshops from Puerto Rico. Just because if I'd rather split the money and earn less so that we win rather than the behemoth that starts with an A and ends with a bozo. But still, I do have a sale on ebooks on Amazon for 5 of my books just because I have a big slice of FOMO that I'm not there with my people. They're having a blast and I'm super happy for them, and I will be joining them next year. But I do have the entire Human Cycle on sale for 99 cents each. I have Given to Fly and I have Penumbra, which are short stories in Spanish. If you speak Spanish or read Spanish and want something with sabor boricua, very Puerto Rican, check out my short story collection.
Awesome. As always, thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it. Okay, everyone. I want to thank our panelists for being here. I want to thank our people in the comments for commenting, and for those who are watching. Again, if you're watching in the future, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. We love to interact with you. And because there's no epilogue this week, I will do the deed, because it's always time to go indie now. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.